I believe that most people go into work and they generally want to do a good job. But sometimes circumstances stop them from doing so. As a leader, if you are faced with such a situation with another colleague, then it's up to you to go find out what's going on. This is where what I've mentioned earlier comes into play. Getting to know that colleague, asking those insightful questions and listening to what they have to say, finding out about any of the unspoken rules or work practices within that other team. Whatever it is, you have to go find out, get to the crux of the matter, so that then you can find a way working together with that colleague in order to get what you want in return. Sometimes your colleague might not be difficult because they want to, but because they don't quite understand the common outcome required or they've misunderstood it. So it's up to you to go there and create a win-win situation where both sides understand the roles that they play, what they are bringing into the relationship, and what is the common outcome that needs to be achieved. Of course, if there are real issues that's hindering a common understanding of the outcomes required, then you got to step forward and resolve them together with that colleague. It's tempting to think that because everyone comes from the same organization, that the teams within are going to have very similar working styles and leadership approaches, as well as their orientation towards work results. That's not always the case. Each person that you work with is different, and therefore you have to approach each colleague differently. Naturally, it pays to be open and upfront with what you need from them. If a colleague is giving you some challenges, go and find out how you can create a win-win situation. Understand their background, what's motivating them, and then focus on how you can collaborate together. This way, you shift the relationship from one where they feel that they are doing you a favor to one where working together is mutually beneficial for both sides. And who knows, one day they might need something from you in return. It's not really your job to be coaching colleagues from other teams. Sometimes though, team leaders in other teams might not exactly be doing a good job in leading and developing their team members. And that's where you need to step in. Because if you're facing difficulties with a colleague from another team, it might be up to you to point out to them the behaviors that is creating difficulty in achieving the outcome that's required. You want to help that colleague to understand how they're being difficult in terms of the work that they do and what are the steps that they can take to improve the situation so that the outcome that is desired can be achieved. Now let's put all the 10 ways that I've shared so far into a possible scenario where you have to deal with a difficult colleague from another team. There are situations where there is a former team leader and an informal team leader within a team. So if you are unable to find resolution through the former team leader, then seek out the informal team leader and get them to help you. It's always easier to help those that we know. So if you're facing some difficulties with a colleague, it might be time for you to get to know them better. Most of us want to be able to do a good job. So if you're facing some challenges with a colleague, it's important that you ask those insightful questions and listen to what they have to say, and then figure out what can you do to help them help you. As you are asking those insightful questions and listening to what that difficult colleague has to say, keep in mind that they themselves have their own work priorities and challenges. So one of the angles that you need to remember is what can you do to help them, make it easier for them to give you what you need. As you're listening to that colleague, ask yourself, have you really gotten to know them? When you approach them to ask them to help you with something, have you bothered to ask them if they needed anything from you in return in order for them to give you what you need? Sometimes your colleague is not being difficult because they want to, but because circumstances or the situation that they are in is making it a challenge for them to give you what you need. And so you need to go find out if there are any current processes or work practices that's preventing your colleague from making it easy for them to give you what you're after. If you like the content that you see so far, make sure you hit a like, subscribe, and leave a comment in this video. It helps me to grow the channel. Thanks. As part of that process of getting to know your colleague and understanding their work practices, something that you want to find out as well is what motivates them so that you can be in a better position to ensure that they can help you with what you're after. Make sure that there is a common understanding between you and that colleague in terms of the outcome that is required. And after you have understood more about that colleague, gotten to know them, and know about the situation that they're in. What can you do to create a win-win situation? And there will be times when, in the process of working with that colleague, you need to point out behaviors that are seen as difficult and show them how they can make improvements with the situation. Dealing with a colleague from another team is a lot more challenging than dealing with team members within your own team. Because at least with your own team, you can rely on your formal authority as a last resort. But you can't do the same with colleagues from other teams, because if they're a team member, you have to deal with their team leader. And if they're a peer team leader yourself, then you have to focus on your ability to influence. And so the key takeaway from these 10 ways to deal with difficult colleagues in other teams is to focus on your leadership, particularly your ability to influence. And where does influence come from? The strength of the relationship that you have with that colleague. So if there's anything that you need a colleague from somewhere else to do, then you need to rely on the strength of the relationship that you have. And that strength needs to correspond with the difficulty of the request that you're putting forward. And so the 10 ways in this video are really different methods that you can use as a standalone or in combination in order to strengthen the relationship that you have with that colleague and to increase your influence over them. This is actually the 4th video that I've created that helps you to work with colleagues at different levels when you are a first-time leader. I have videos that you can watch as a first-time leader to help you improve your working relationship with your team. The links are in the description below. I also have a video that helps you to deal with a difficult boss, especially when you're running your own team and that boss keeps getting in the way. And once again, this video focuses on helping you to deal with colleagues in other teams. You may have noticed that as I'm talking about the 10 ways to deal with difficult colleagues in other teams, I've also flashed a number of the leadership traits. These leadership traits are derived from my first-time leadership research. If you're interested to find out how these leadership traits can help you to be a successful first-time leader, there's a link in the description below. Just click on it. I hope that the 10 ways that I've shared here will help you to deal with difficult colleagues in other teams. In any case, my name is Daniel Lee from First Time Leadership. I look forward to speaking with you soon.